Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. So, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the general election campaign in the United Kingdom that Rishi Sunak he kicked off yesterday, being Thursday. It took many people by surprise. There have been rumours for a couple of months he might go early, partly because they say he's just so weary, and partly to forestall an attempt to oust him as leader, put enough letters into the chair of the 1922 committee, and hold a vote of confidence. But so he's going now, and he's going out of the job. He's not stupid. Even his most implacable foe wouldn't accuse him of imbecility. So we'll have advised His Majesty the King to dissolve Parliament, and of course the Sovereign always acts on ministerial advice. So Charles III is going to do that, and in a few days we'll actually have the formal notification from those heralds or pursuivants, whatever, dressed up like playing cards from at Market Cross in Edinburgh, somewhere in London, elsewhere. But it seemed providential that the heavens passed judgment on Sunak's announcement, weeping copiously over him. And as a Wickhamist, you might know the story of St. Swithin's Day. Uh, but yeah, pathetic fallacy, you'd call it, if you were a philologist. It really is emblematic of his ineptitude. You know the weather forecast, they're going to be regular showers. You could have delayed a few hours. You have an indoor briefing room in 10 Downing Street. There was no need to do it outside the door, but there we go. And he screwed up already. In Wales, he said to people, "Are you looking forward to the European Football Championships?" Despite the fact that the Principality is not qualified this time. Now, all right, they could still support Scotland or England, but it was seen to be insensitive and or ignorant, trying to play a man of the people who cares about footer. I don't, and being coming across as completely wooden, ill-prepared, artificial, and all the rest of it. So that is Sunak. Now, Labour's offering precious little because they don't want to be accused of overpromising and then under-delivering, or promising, making promises they can't fulfil. On the other hand, then if they get into government, they promise very little, then it's difficult to disappoint, because but then the trouble is that doesn't really actuate people to vote Labour, and the Conservative Party is seen as disgustful, and that's why people are voting Labour, but largely is the only possible alternative. But Labour do have a bit of a threat from the Green Party. The Green Party probably only take 2 seats max, but by taking several percentage points in some seats, that could prevent Labour taking seats from the Conservative Party. So the extreme left is voting for the Green Party, and more slightly bad news for Labour is their quantum leader, Comrade Corbyn. He's going to stand in his Islington constituency against Labour. Remember, the Labour whip withdrawn. On the other hand, there's a silver lining through the dark cloud shining, because there's a reason to expel him from the Labour Party, something I think Sir Keir Starmer has been itching to do for ages. Will he win in Islington North? I think he will, actually. Now, Jeremy Corbyn's former lover, Diane Abbott, she's in the other Islington seat, and she's got the Labour whip withdrawn. Is she going to be the Labour candidate or not? I suspect she's not, actually. Would she stand as independent? And I think she would. I don't think she'll get elected, though, but we shall see. She'll probably run Labour quite close. Obviously, Starmer would be keen to get rid of her. She'd always be a thorn in his side if she's in the party. So it'd be great for her to get rid of her. But, if she stands against him and she wins, and give that something like 40% chance, then that's a bit of a pain in the neck. I mean, one thing is Starmer and her could join the Green Party, the Workers' Party of Britain. They'd like a few big name people who are already parliamentarians. So yeah, the Conservative campaign has not gone well. They've got lots of funding, far more than the other parties. They can get up to £34 million. Notably, their desire to take away people's civil liberties, that's at least been delayed, so that's a good thing. That you won't the smoking ban will not deprive young adults of their freedom. Now, that's not a party political thing. That was meant to be a vote of conscience. Now, Wes Streeting says it is the conservative. He agrees with Liz Truss. Well, I mean, would it be anti-socialist? I mean, socialists meant to believe in some sort of bodily autonomy. Well, there is some more good news about the timing of the election. Of course, the right to life, threadbare as it is somewhat protected. There was this vote that was going to come up, put out by extremist fetusophobes like Stella Creasy, saying that murdering children even 9 months in the womb, beyond that's just going to be a-okay. You will not have to account for that whatsoever. That children have no rights whatsoever. She's a feminist. She's an outspoken advocate of violence against girls and boys. But fortunately, that bill's not going to be voted on just now. Sadly, the Labour government will probably put it forward, even as not a whipped vote. Okay, but babies can breathe a sigh of relief for a while. Now, it's bizarre that what's his name, that Sunak went to Northern Ireland to campaign, considering the Conservative Party doesn't even stand in Northern Ireland, but they I had a confidence supply agreement with the DUP once. Okay, so it's been a rather unflattering, soggy campaign from the Conservatives in every sense. He's been to Nottingham as well, and obviously has these very staged events with people in boiler suits to see that they're horny-handed sons of toil, and often they're Conservative Party members, activists, councillors, and so on. Now, there have been some rallies like at Gillingham in Kent for Labour, but Labour are licking their lips. Of the 370 Conservative MPs, over 70 are standing down, more of them coming in each day, like John Redwood, one of the big beasts. He's been MP for Wokingham since 1987. When 95, when John Major stood down, showing some unmajorish oomph, the Back Me or Sack Me campaign, the Secretary of State for Wales at the time, Redwood stood against him and lost, got about a quarter of the vote. And that's when William Hague got that cabinet seat for the first time with Secretary of State of Wales. Neither of these MPs was Welsh or even sat for a Welsh constituency. Not that that is legally required. Look at the Northern Ireland Secretary. He's never been someone who's an Ulsterman or Ulsterwoman and has never sat for a seat in the province. Yeah, but Redwood's stepping it aside. Now, Labour, they've got a few Labour MPs retiring, but mostly ones who are superannuated, smelling victory, are staying on because they'd like to be in government, even though they won't get any ministerial post, mostly. So it's really bad news for the Conservatives. But because some people are standing down so late in some Conservative constituencies, even quite safe ones, people have got a chance because over the 5 years of Parliament, about 3,000 people would typically apply to be on the Conservative candidates list. About 1,000 would get through the 2 rounds of interviews. Only 630 Conservative candidates are needed. And so most of those seats were arranged ages ago. But when somebody says at the last minute, I'm stepping down, that's a chance for those who haven't found a seat to stand in. And obviously, the ultra safe Conservative seats, which Conservative candidates like to stand in, if you don't get one of those, a marginal one, which would be Conservative held this time, because it was a good year for the Tories 5 years ago, be Labour held in a bad year for the Conservatives, but that's marginal, is winnable. Whereas if you can't get any of those as a Conservative candidate, you can have to stand in a seat that's safe for another party, Labour, the Liberal Democrats, the SNP. Yeah, so it's a rather unexciting campaign. I wonder if turnout will be quite low, partly because the result is so clear. But Labour's real problem is actually actuating people to vote. Remember 2001, the Conservatives hoping for the Queensland scenario, a legislative election in Australia, Queensland. The Australian Labour Party looked like they're going to win by a landslide, but they were too complacent and they didn't motivate their voters to cast their ballots. And the Liberal Party in Australia ended up winning. So I think that's a highly improbable scenario in the United Kingdom. It would take a selective meteorite strike for the Tories to triumph this time. It's a matter of damage limitation. And with this tacit admission from Sunak, this Rwanda plan is not going to get off the ground literally because the first plane is supposed to take off the deportation flights in July this year, and the election date is 4th of July. Incidentally, the election date is part of the school holidays in Scotland, so some people will be away. That'll particularly affect those with school-aged children. The younger you are, the more likely you are to be an anti-conservative. The Scottish Conservative Party is actually quite weak. Disrespectful to North Britain, so said John Swinney, now the First Minister of North Britain. But yeah, we shall see. The Liberal Democrats, ineffectual as ever. Sir Ed Davey, the Invisible Man, really doesn't have a profile. Think back to Charles Kennedy when he was adulated and lionized. Chat show Charlie, okay, panned as a lightweight, but at least he had a media profile. I remember asking about 20 A-level politics pupils this, who's the leader of the Liberal Democrats? Nobody could name him. And that is actually a damning indictment of a very telling. It's his job to make sure that the average person knows who he is. And the SNP hasn't had very much to say. So yeah, Labour, they're going to do very little. Liberal Democrats are going to hire 8,000 GPs. I don't know where they're going to magic these GPs up for. Labour's at least got maybe saying we mustn't kill the goose that lays the golden egg with regard to international students. That is at least sensible. But there's actually very little reason to hope with Labour coming in, they'll improve anything. They'll just be even more woke and bigoted. They'll just savage people's civil liberties. They'll be oppressive. It'll be revolting. The Conservatives have obviously been repugnant on the civil liberties issue as well. So it's all very dispiriting, and I'm highly disaffected. What about you? Right, it's an unedifying spectacle. This race at the bottom in terms of civil liberties here in the United Kingdom. Anyway, thank you for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon and donate on PayPal with the greatest possible liberality. George Callahan 79 at gmail.com. Toodaloo.